glad the meeting was today and not yesterday. So anyway, we'll call the meeting to order and let's stand and have the pledge to the flag. Mr. Vanderheiden, please lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You gonna call roll?
Yeah. Larry Walsh.
Here.
Rick Brooks.
Here.
Mayor Claire.
Here.
Ms. White.
Here.
Tim Vanderheiden.
Here.
Jim Walsh.
Here.
You have a quorum.
Do have a quorum?
There are some members on their way,
Okay.
so then the minutes when
Yeah. Okay. Entertain a motion to approve our agenda as presented.
Move.
Moved by Mr. Brooks, second by Mr. Walsh. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary motion is carried. The approval of the minutes of our last meeting, which was in October 2013. I'll make a motion by Mr. Vanderheiden.
Second.
Second, Chris. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. Moving on, reading of the public hearing notice, Ron?
the purpose of this meeting was, the notice was published in the Herald News on February the 6th, the notice of the hearing to make a substantial amendment to our consolidated plan, which is a 5-year plan. The public hearing date and time was posted. Public hearing followed by an advisory board meeting will be conducted to discuss proposed amendments to the 2010 to 2014 consolidated plan and the 2013 action plan as submitted and approved by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Each time the county proposes changes in priorities, methods of distribution of funds, or to carry out an activity not originally proposed with the consolidated plan or the action plan in an amount over $200,000 warrants a substantial amendment to the consolidated plan and the action plan. Now, the county is conducting this hearing in order to recommend changes to the action plan to amend the action plan as submitted to HUD. The county proposes to expand its eligible use of home investment partnership grant funds to include owner-occupied and rental unit rehab in the amount of $500,000. Specific projects include investments in home funds in projects sponsored by Cornerstone, Easter Seals, and Hawthorne Lakes Senior Development. The rest of the public notice indicated that it's handicap accessible, and it was published and signed by County Executive on the 6th of February. Request a motion that hearing notice be put in the minutes.
Moved by Mr. Clare, second by Mr. Walsh. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. Statement of our purpose and public hearing to
Yeah, basically that's what I just
read.
read.
That's exactly right.
So we do have some representatives from the agencies involved and from the public, so we would look for a motion to open the public hearing.
Moved by motion by Ms. White, second by Mayor Clare. All in favor? We'll take a roll call on this, Ron.
Walsh?
Yes.
Brooks?
Yes.
Claire?
Yes.
White?
Yes.
Vanderheiden?
Yes.
Walsh?
Yes.
Okay, we are in public hearing, so we want to hear from the
Any comments from the public? We could, representatives from...
The public is the Easter Seals and others, so.
Right. So-
Debbie, you want to make an address to anybody?
Sure, I'd love the opportunity to do
Go ahead,
that.
step forward. State your name and address for the record, so.
Deborah Cavati, 1220 Dover Court, Shorewood. We had an unusual situation.
And you're with Easter.
I'm with Easter Seals, yeah. We had an unusual situation when we received a call from a family in Lockport. The elderly mother, who was widowed, was living in the family homestead with 2 daughters with developmental disabilities. She had decided that it was their value to maintain their loved ones at home as long as they could care for them. She had a cerebral hemorrhage and was not able to return to her home. And so Easter Seals received a call about emergency placements. So we made emergency accommodations for one of the sisters, and then the second sister went to live with a family member. Meanwhile, the family approached us and suggested that they would like to donate their family homestead to Easter Seals, which is on Archer Avenue. And with that we would agree to care for both of the women, one of whom is a senior citizen already herself, for as long as they were able to reside in their family home. And so we've had a number of hurdles to surpass. Easter Seals has never received a gift like this from a family, and it was just very heartwarming, and I kept thinking, well, what is going to be the barriers to being able to do this? And we worked initially with some folks at the City of Lockport around the access that we need to public sewer and water to this particular site. They were in an extension project at that time right near the property, which was a coincidence. And so then we took a look at, well, what do we need to do? This is a 1950s home. It's a very nice piece of property. It is a ranch. It's about 1,600 square feet. And when we contacted the office about home funds, it seemed like there was an opportunity perhaps to have some funds to do some of the needed renovations there. So that fell in place. So meanwhile, we're in the process of receiving the deed for the property, and we've made a commitment to care for the ladies. It will also allow 3 to 4 other seniors with developmental disabilities to reside in that location, and it would be Easter Seals' first site in Lockport. And I must say the people that are with the Village of Lockport there have been very encouraging to us. It is zoned appropriately because it's under 6 people, and it's in unincorporated Will County, I believe, at this time. It was just a wonderful thing. So I hope that it works out, and we appreciate your consideration.
Is it handicapped accessible?
That's what we need to do.
Oh, that's what you're
Yeah.
renovating?
We install a residential sprinkler system, handicapped accessible. We're doing some remodeling, of course, to the facilities to make it that way, and some upgrades. It is an older home, but it's a nice location, it's a nice solid home. It gives us a start in another community that's not had resources like this before, and hopefully a few other families from that community will be able to benefit. It's a nice story.
Great. Any questions?
You said that City of Lockport, it's in the City of Lockport, working with those officials, but you, again, you said it's an unincorporated Will County. It's one or the other.
It's in, what is it?
It's in unincorporated Will County, however, they do have to connect to city sewer and water in order to
Okay.
accommodate the fire suppression requirements.
Yes, yeah.
Are they gonna have to annex?
I'm sorry.
Are you gonna have to annex to the city or no?
No.
Okay.
And the family is paying for the cost of that extension.
Okay.
Is that part of Bonnie Brae? Water and sewer? Oh, it's not?
Part of the city.
Oh, part of the city?
Yeah.
Okay.
The city happened to be in the neighborhood, extending water and sewer
Yeah, well,
at the time, and then this came up last fall, and the timing was pretty good.
yes.
But the problem that we have right now is the fact that we did not ever project, at least in our 4-year plan, we use of home funds for rehab. So that's the dual purpose of this course, is to incorporate this project into our plan and also rehab.
Mr. Brooks, you have a comment?
Yes, Debbie, the funds you're asking for here from this committee, will that fix all the ills there, or is there more you have to go after and or seek other grants to help bring this house under ADA or whatever you need to do? Would this fix the problem?
With the request, and I believe the recommendation from staff, and the funds that the family is sharing with us, and some of our own resources, we would have everything in place to
Okay.
accomplish what we need.
Okay, good.
Jim Walsh?
Debbie, do I understand you said that the family pays for the extension of the sewer and water,
They are-
but yet this is going to become an Easter Seals house. This is going to
Yes.
be, and they're going to stay there till they can no longer stay, and then, but it's still totally your
The
house.
deed is being transferred to us, yes. It's an unusual situation. Very refreshing.
So even after the other two ladies are gone off the scene, you'll still own the house, other person come in and take
Correct.
advantage of it as well?
Correct. And there's an agreement that's being developed to that extent that speaks to it, a legal document, when we accept the property, the understanding with which we're accepting it, and that we would move forward and serve, other people as well, and the sisters as long as they would qualify to be served. So,
Good. Any other questions? Jim, Chris? Karina?
We've had a request for extending money to Easter Seal, the existing house that we have investment in, but we found out at the last minute that we can't do that. So we're going to scratch that from the agenda. And
Richard Street one?
There's a Richard Street project which we already invested home funds in, but we're prevented from investing additional funds because we're still in a period of time where the funds are affordability period. The other issue that we have, the last minute change on, is the Hawthorne Lakes senior residence. Tim, would you like to just
Sure.
briefly talk
Why
about
don't we
that?
take the cornerstone?
Okay, all right.
There you go.
Hi, I'm Sue Boltman with Cornerstone. Home address is 2190 Finborough Circle in New Lenox. So Cornerstone has a great long-standing history working with the county, and we appreciate this opportunity to get some additional funds for renovation. Our request was for several properties that we own in the Will County area that have aged and now are in need of renovation. In addition, as the consumers that we serve age, their needs change, and we need to make the homes even more accessible than they already are. Things like putting in hard floors, tile floors rather than carpeting for people who have wheelchairs and are now in wheelchairs or have walkers. But we had 8 properties throughout the area, generally with the issues being that they've aged, and when you have a large number of people living in a home, they tend to require some renovation as time goes on. And so this will give us an opportunity to make those changes that we know are much needed in this group of homes, to make the home situation for the residents living there just more appropriate and accessible for them.
Any questions? Yeah, Jim?
I see that one of these is in Manhattan, and I know where the house is, and what I was wondering, I see these people occasionally with the food pantry and such, and is there somebody stays with them in that house 24 hours a day?
There is, yes. Yeah, it's an apartment building, and one of the apartments is a staff apartment, so there are staff there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, awake, yes.
Anybody else? Any other questions? When you do these renovations, do you just pick and choose and ask a contractor to do these, or do you put them out for bid, or?
They go out for bid.
Oh, they do go
Yes,
out for bid.
yes.
Okay.
Our maintenance director puts all of these out for bid, yes.
Okay,
Yes, and that would be the plan with these as well.
okay, good.
Because federal dollars are involved, you
Yeah.
have to bring each unit up to code.
Yeah,
So there may be a wish list from Cornerstone's perspective that says we need to do this, but we're going to have an independent inspector look at the property and determine if there are additional things that need to be done to bring it up to code. So it's not going to be just cosmetic, it's going to be structural and et cetera. So we're gonna look at that. So depending on the amount of money per each unit, we may do fewer units than the 8 units.
Let the record show Jim Eustace is, Jim. You know, 8 units, 8 different units, would you?
Right.
Would that be, would one contractor handle them all, or do you put a bid out for each individual unit?
I believe they would put out a bid for each additional, or for each location.
Okay.
Yes, it would be a separate process for each location.
So, any other questions? All right, thank you very much, Sue.
Thank you.
Okay, Tim?
Very quickly, I received a call this morning from Tim Roberts, who is our liaison on the Hawthorne Lakes.
Everybody know Tim Mack? Everybody? Okay. Sorry.
And he informed me they were in process of applying for 4% low-income housing tax credits. They received word late Friday that they were not going to receive it in this round. So that project, right now, they have to reapply for tax credits. So we'll scrap that for this round, and they're going to reapply with our normal cycle in April and May for home funds. They hope to hear something by the end of the summer.
There was a proposed project is in Frankfort Township, and we were asked to participate in the plan. We were all set to make a recommendation. Then at the last minute, we found out that the tax credit application was not approved. So rather than approve an allocation at this time, we're going to hold off and make a recommendation when we know that the project is going to go forward. I was hoping that the mayor would be here to discuss that issue, because it is going to be an unincorporated Frankfort.
Unincorporated?
I wouldn't mind chatting with her.
Yeah. I think the township's
Supervisor, I've supported some of these projects, I've not supported some. I'm not so sure that Frankfort Township or Frankfort or the village of Mokina or the village of Tiffany Park, all which are in Frankfort Township, just equal education, have supported this. They've asked me to give a letter of support, which I did once, and then I gave a letter of non-support. So, obviously, they've gone around all the locals, so I came directly to you. So, unincorporated Frankfort Township has affordable housing, and a lot of it. And this, once again, is just going to concentrate additional housing, affordable housing in the same area. And I might also add, it competes with Frankfort Township's senior housing program. So,
Breakfast you, Jim.
it doesn't have a lot of support.
Mayor Holland, in attendance, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks.
You got here right
Going on
at the right
about
time.
subsidized housing in Frankfort.
I'm sure you can go on about it. I don't want to take somebody's chair here.
And I'm saying that, I'm not supportive, I want to talk to the mayor. I am not supportive of this. We have, in the areas they're looking at, we have affordable city housing. So,
You're not supportive of this proposal, Jim?
no,
Okay.
so I said, well,
Jim Paul?
That was my question. Did you have a letter on this particular right here of
is this
objection?
one on Pine Hill and,
Yes.
yes. I supported it many years ago. And that's when the township was going to partner with them to do this. So at least there would be some local control. And it was going to go into the Frankfort Township program where we could have some, I don't want to say restrictions, there are no restrictions, but we were going to fold it into the Frankfort Township program, which would work off our residence list and our list of seniors, which amounted at that time to about 120 were on a waiting list. In the interim, thanks to the village of Frankfort, we were able to purchase a foreclosed on condo development in the village of Frankfort, which we intend on in the township
along with our local partners, in developing that for affordable senior housing that then is controlled by Frankfurt Township and its surrounding communities. So when they came back to me, I specifically told them I would not support their development. And they have not been approved. So I don't know why you would have ever even gotten ahead of this. You know, they've applied a number of conditions. And here again, there's plenty of senior housing in that area, and there's plenty of affordable housing in that area. That's my story, Jeff. I don't know about you.
Good job.
Good job.
Okay, Mayor.
And by the way, we don't like these railroads either. You did a good job on TV, that's what I'm saying. So anyway,
You have a comment, Jim? Mayor?
The Village of Frankfurt hasn't supported this project. As a committee member, though, on this board, it is part of what this group does. Looks at lower income housing and where should it be and such. And so I have two hats on this issue, and it's an interesting one for me indeed. But when Mr. Moose has said that at one time they had supported it and they were going to be directly involved with this project, and then it changed, and because of that change, it seems like it's not appropriate. And I don't know how far along it is. I did not think that it had been approved by the county, but it hasn't.
Well, it hasn't. It has not been approved.
We were putting it on the agenda because we were told that they were applying for, the developer was applying for tax credits, and that the approval was imminent. However, we just were notified today that it was not approved. So we're pulling the item off the agenda until a further time.
Ron, they've said that in the past too.
I understand.
You know, if they couldn't get approval with the township as their partner, I don't know how they're going to do it now. And I might also add that the Frankfurt Township senior housing development, which is affordable housing, it's not low-income housing, but it's affordable housing. I understand there's a difference. You know, I think that our housing is more dispersed throughout the community. Some of it's in, kind of like between Frankfurt and Mokina. Our latest development is in the village of Frankfurt. We're right next to the unincorporated area. I think we're positioned very well. We can add up to 100 units on that development we purchased, which I think will be about a 60-year build house. But nevertheless, we have the ability to do that. And I think as our program goes on, we might even be able to do some stuff that might be a little bit more affordable for some folks.
Jim Walsh, question?
If neither the township nor the village bring this to this board, who brings this to the board?
Well, the developer brings it to the advisory.
Oh, so this actually came through the developer?
That's correct.
Yeah, so what they do, Jim, is they hire firms that this is all they do.
Look for grants or look for...
Well, no, they specifically do low-income housing and tax credits. So they hire another firm to do this. And what this firm does then is goes out and tries to match as much money, or tries to get as much government money in this as possible, so the developer doesn't have to come up with it. Tax credits for banks are extremely profitable, extremely profitable. It's probably one of the things that give them the biggest return on any investment they have. So the bank credits are there, but the state of Illinois has to approve it, and they actually allot those bank credits. And quite frankly, I think the state of Illinois can probably better utilize, and I think they recognize that, better utilize those limited tax credit dollars in those places, especially when we're providing affordable housing in Frankfurt Township.
This isn't nothing unusual. I mean, this is the
You mean for
ordinary
them to bring
procedure.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
procedure. I mean, they come to and see, try and put the package together.
It doesn't have to be a government unit that
No,
brings this?
no. We've got a lot of that are not
We
government here.
encourage the developers who interface with us to to get all the local support in the zoning ironed out ahead of time. I don't usually bring anything to the board, to the advisory board, that doesn't have the zoning approved. And the support, sometimes these developers who bring this stuff to us are hedging their bet a little bit.
Yep. If I could point one other thing out, the county zoned this property many years ago. And this property was part of a larger development that was basically condo development that was age restricted, 55 and older. And now that they can't, you know, the economy dips a little bit, or that they have a more difficult time selling age-restricted homes. Now they want to take what we approved as a county and basically change what we approved by bringing in other, the buildings haven't changed, density hasn't changed, but what was changed is what the development was intended to serve, which was single family, or rather, seniors 55 and older development. Now, I've told the developer, if you wanted to come back and maybe take the age restriction off, the remainder of that development, maybe I could be supportive of that. But I do want to point out, when the county approved it, it was not for low-income housing, it was for a senior development. And it has a lot of density, which the village of Frankfurt objected to originally. And I think the only reason it went through was because of the age restriction of 55 and older, which really, from population density, usually puts one or two residents in each unit. But, you know, so I want to point that out too. So.
Well, the issue, Mayor Collins' comment, you know, if it doesn't have local support, then it's very unlikely that I think this board would be approving anything that would be against the communities that they want to go into. So, but this was they were not approved. They have never been approved. So they were just like they were hedging their bet on trying to get in early. So.
Good call.
Any other, when, you just found out Friday though, right?
No, this morning.
Just this morning? Oh, so, okay. Other comments?
So the motion that I would request is a motion to approve the Cornerstone request and the Easter Seal request. And the overall motion of allowing us to use home funds for rental and owner-occupied rehab, which is going to trigger a substantial amendment. And that resolution would be placed before the county board in March. So that would be a motion to recommend that action take place by this board.
Ron, could I?
Yes.
Now, do you want to take them both together, or do they have to be separate?
All in one resolution.
And my second question is, as far as what we've heard from the township and the village of Frankfurt, do we have to take any action on that? Or just leave it on the...
That is being removed from the agenda, so
Okay.
that will not be part of the resolution.
Okay. Just remove?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, two items.
Right.
The Hawthorne Lakes residents and the Easter Seals group home on Richard Street. Those two items have been removed from the agenda. So you heard Mr. Pullman's motion, and everybody understand the motion?
Asking for a motion, I can't.
Asking for a motion.
Is it 50 or 100,000?
Lockport is 120,000.
You have an old agenda.
I have an old agenda.
Oh,
Forgive me. That's what happened. Delay.
I'm sorry.
Perfect.
I'm sorry, Jim.
No, no. There's a better number here.
It's 120,000 for the Lockport home rehabilitation and 167,000 for 8 properties with Cornerstone Services and for rehab also. So. And then the other issue is to be allowed to spend money on renovations through the offices, correct?
That's correct.
Motion,
Make that motion.
Jim?
I still make a motion to just put it on sale.
No, he said it all
Say so
already. He said it all
moved, yeah.
already. Is there a second to the motion? Mr. Vanderheiden seconds it. Ron, let's have a roll call on the motion.
Walsh,
Yes.
Brooks,
Yes.
Eustace,
Yes?
Holland,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Vanderheiden,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to other business.
Okay, public hearing is, has
Oh,
been
yeah, oh,
closed.
okay. Need a motion to close the public hearing. The other's not under public hearing, right? Moved by Mr. Clare, second by Mr. Mustis. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary, motion is carried. Now, moving on to,
We have a little housekeeping to take care of. Plainfield Township, their intergovernmental agreement, which is attached for your review. This has been approved by the Will County State's Attorney. And what we're basically doing is taking money that was set aside for Plainfield Township. We've been working on the Sunnyland project, drainage project in the subdivision just adjacent to Crest Hill and Joliet. We've been working on that project for the last 6 months or so, and we need a formal authorization to basically take that project back internally. So the money was approved to be granted to the township, but because of the complexity and the need for daily oversight, the township didn't have the staff capacity to do it, so we've assumed that role internally. Basically, this agreement is an agreement that allows the county to take back the grant and oversee the project. We've done this in the past, and we've been doing this, but I wanted a formal authorization because not only has the township government changed with the new supervisor, but the project scope has changed a little bit as well. So we've added additional funds to the project, all approved by the county board. So we're asking for this intergovernmental agreement to be approved to allow us to administer the day-to-day activity of the Sunnyland project, the amount of $434,751.
moved by Mr. Mustis,
Second.
second by Ms. White. Any questions on this? Is this, we can work this agreement out with the township?
With the township and with the state secretary, so that both sides are protected.
Okay.
Have they spent any of that money yet?
Oh, yes, we've been spending
If
money.
this project is
Well,
ongoing.
actually, we've been spending this money and also, we had another grant from the state of Illinois, $750,000. So the project is right now in transition because of the winter, obviously, but in the spring it'll start up again and we'll hope to finish it by then. So the township has been to the county basically 3 times looking for funds to complete this project. And this agreement kind of wraps everything together.
Did the township put any money into this project?
Yes, they put money into the engineering
The
portion.
engineering portion?
And we're going to be working with the highway commissioner in our October
Yeah.
meeting. We discussed the public hearing for that as well.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Maybe call roll.
Okay, Walsh,
Yes?
Brooks,
Yes.
Eustace,
Yes.
Holland,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
White,
Yes.
Vanderheiden,
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Okay, motion is carried. Okay, moving on to...
Now we have a piece of business that staff is looking for direction from this board on how to proceed. I'm very pleased that the mayor is here today to participate in this discussion. And I would like to just give an overview of what the problem is. The county was asked a couple years ago by HUD if they would be interested in taking over Bolingbrook's grant program. And in taking over that program, there was phases to it. The first phase was to administer an existing program and oversee that program. And the second element was eventually, and more specifically, where Bolingbrook would merge back into the county's program. That has been accomplished through an intergovernmental agreement. The county board has approved it, and we are in the process of fulfilling that agreement. Now, there's basically two programs that we're dealing with here. There's Bolingbrook's program as it was for the last 10 years, and then there's the county's program, which is different. And the reason why it's different is because Bolingbrook, in their dealings with HUD, was allowed to perform to expend their money on what HUD calls exception criteria. Exception criteria allows the village to go into an area and use federal CDBG dollars in that area where the census tract is not 51% of all lot. They petitioned to HUD and asked for an exception to be made so that they could work in areas, in census tracts, that were 35% low mod. So if you had, if anybody has a question on that, I can explain it in general terms. We canvass an area, the census tract determines whether or not an area has the income levels necessary to participate in that area. Okay, so the census tracts in Bolingbrook were such that there were very few census tracts that had 51% low mod residents based on census data. Bolingbrook for the last 10 years has been operating in those areas at 35%. Now when they merge into the county's program, the county does not have exception criteria. All of our projects require 51% low mod. If the census tract is not supported, then we ask the community to take a survey, an income survey, a door-to-door income survey, in order to qualify the area. So if we're working in Wilmington, if we're working in Frankfurt, if we're working in Manhattan, wherever we work, the census tract has to support the 51%. If it doesn't, then we ask the community to do the survey. So the dilemma that we have right now is that Bolingbrook has submitted projects for our new plan under the county's jurisdiction for the year 2013, which is a current year. I think it's $275,000. They want to use those funds in the areas where the exception criteria exists. And we are now, staff is at a dilemma because we need direction as to what this board wants us to do. If we are to continue with our plan of requiring 51%, then the village would have to do income surveys in order to qualify these areas. Now, what we're talking about primarily is road reconstruction projects. That's how the village has seen fit to use their project money, their grant money over the last several years. And again, that request has come to us to use that money in those areas that the census tract shows 35%. So I open it up to the advisory board to give us direction as to how they want us to proceed on that matter.
I've got a question. When we're trying to establish the criteria of the area to be 35% or 51%, and say if it doesn't meet, I'm not talking about Bolingbrook right now, it's just in general. And if it doesn't meet the 51%, then we ask the applicant to go out door to door. And the reason that is we're allowing the applicant to prove to us that it meets the 51% criteria?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Mr. Eustace?
Is the 51% guideline, Ron, is that a federal guideline?
Yes, it is.
You know, I haven't dealt with census data and census tracts in Will County. Quite frankly, it's extremely difficult in Will County to get any census tracts.
You're right.
I mean, it's almost impossible. I mean, we have, my guess is, in all of Will County, we might have a handful that are 51%. And I'm thinking we don't have any that are 51%, but there might be a couple. But there's a couple, you know, but my point is it's a real challenge to get to 51%. And it doesn't mean that an area isn't, when you look at Will County comparatively to our average income in Will County, that we don't have people that are lower income or lower in that, lower percentile in that group. You know, I wanted to say in general, not necessarily about Bolingbrook, I do think that we should allow exception when we know as local residents of Will County, we know what areas are more in need, we know where there's lower income. And because in the census tract you might have, you know, some data or some blocks that throw up all the data totally for the tract. You know, so I do think the idea of us using some discretion on census tracts, just in general, is a good policy for us to consider. Now, I don't know if it's 35%, I don't know if it's 40%, but I would like to see us, maybe this board, actually establish a policy on exception. Certainly, we have to address Bolingbrook, but I'd like to see us actually establish a policy on when we apply exceptions.
Do we qualify, Ron? Could we petition federal HUD that we could have exception criteria?
We could. We have not in the past, but we could. Every
But I think
grantee.
Mr. Mintus brings up a good point, and I strongly agree with him, and I strongly agree that what Bolingbrook is wanting to do is, you know, there's a need there, then that's where the money should be going. And so, as Jim says, as this county gets more and more diverse, that issue of trying to find 51 is going to be a tough issue.
Let me, just so you understand how exception criteria are established in simpler terms. If the area is, the municipality, whatever, is divided into 4 tracts, 41, 32, 27, and 18. 41 is the highest of those 4 tracts. 41 would become the exception criteria. Okay, so there is some mechanics to establishing criteria. Now, what we were trying not to do is water down the program over these past several years. We did not want to deviate from the 51% requirement of the program, as Jim said. That is a federal mandate. And we felt and we saw that a lot of communities would come in with 27% and 32%, and we just made a policy. It was an informal policy, but we stuck to the 51%. And what the out for the community would be to do the survey.
That's right.
Do the income survey. And that has proven to be very, very acceptable to HUD and to us.
Well, Wilmington got involved in that just a year
Wilmington
ago.
got into the chopping block last year because they messed up. But that's neither here nor there.
That's another story.
So what we will do then is to look at some of our options in developing exception criteria, but maybe it won't be across the board. It'll be on case-by-case basis. But we do have to have a policy, and we will work on that policy and report back to you at the next board meeting. Question here is more specific to Bolingbrook. How does this board want us to function using the existing, now we're not going to have to, we're basically going to have to allow Bolingbrook's exception criteria as it stands to be part of it. We're not going to allow anybody else's exception criteria at this point if they so apply. because we have a new application around.
Well, that's been
coming
in existence for over 10 years or whatever. Mayor Clary, you want to make any comments?
For bikes, so.
Yes, thank you. It's very quickly, if I could, Bolingbrook was appropriated 65 with 5,000 people. It's grown about 74,000 people. It's an extremely diverse community, probably more diverse than any city represented in Will County. In terms of population stats, we're probably 50% minority, between Hispanic, Black, Asian. That's been our strength. People come to Bolingbrook because it's diverse. It's diverse by not only community, but by neighborhood. We don't have an African American neighborhood. We don't have an Hispanic neighborhood. The older part of Bolingbrook clearly has been a problem over the years because those homes were built unincorporated by production home builders, $8,000 and $10,000 homes, most of them on slabs, aluminum wiring, no sidewalks, limited street lights, and narrow streets. So one of the things we tried to do with the CDBG funds, and it was approved by HUD in order to do this, was for us to get to fit, because we don't have neighborhoods of quote-unquote poor people or less low-income people, was use those funds to improve that infrastructure to match the balance of the community. We put in additional streetlights for safety and security to match the street lighting pattern of the newer part of Bolingbrook, which is a considerable amount. We've added sidewalks as we could afford to do so over the years with CDBG funds. And of course, we've done streets with the CDBG funds. We've operated that way, as said, for 10 years. Now HUD's had to change, and they don't really want smaller entitlement communities. That's just Bolingbrook operating more. So they strongly suggested we come back in with Will County, which we've agreed to do, and all the agreements have been done, and this board approved the agreement, so on and so forth. We'd like to continue to operate that way as we can. There is certainly the possibility that within a handful of years, we could run out of those kinds of infrastructure needs. We've tried to avoid anything exotic. We're not doing anything in housing or anything that is, on the fringe. Basic infrastructure improvements in those specific neighborhoods. And if you're familiar with Bolingbrook at all, you know who you are. It's the area in the southeast corner behind the shopping center that's essentially empty, along with Carpet Place, which has been an eyesore I've been unable to correct. No going north up into Briarcliff, that whole southeast part, that's what's the original Dover Homes development in Bolingbrook in the early 60s. So we'd like to continue. I think the problem may well rectify itself, because at some point we run out of even those projects. We don't know, but then again, who knows what the HUD rules will be by then. At a minimum, I would like to have some kind of a sunset where this is revisited. It actually can be revisited every year. I've got no problem even doing that. But we're going through a huge transition internally to do so, and that seems to be moving along well, and this is the last hurdle. In order to get this transition finished, we're not looking for any favors, we're just looking for what we've been doing. Approved by HUD.
I wouldn't say it's the last term, because we have a payback, but that's going to be a tough one.
It's a hurdle today.
This is a hurdle, that we can,
You know what the payback's about? You all know that?
No.
We resurfaced the street and didn't have an environmental study done on it. Now, how ignorant is that? There's a checkpoint. Did you do an environmental study? We resurfaced the existing street, did not increase it, nothing. And HUD put their foot on the floor and said, nope, can't do that. That reimburses. I was embarrassed that our governmental agencies were doing so. In fact, some of the environmental study we did for the sidewalks, which were new, actually covered part of the street. They didn't care. So you did the study. I mean, HUD is, I won't say it because it's on the record. There's a camera pointing at me. But we're just trying to make this transition. We're doing what we were told, and that is the payback.
Any further, no, Jim?
So do you need a motion?
No, I got a couple more questions, Jim.
Just a couple of questions. One is, if we diversify from this 51%, is that gonna maybe cut us back on our funding from the federal government? You don't think that'll have any? And the other thing is, if we diversify on our percentage, and you said if we do this one now, we'll look at, are we gonna just look at these case by case, or do we need to set another number? In other words, if New Lenox comes, are we gonna give them a smaller percentage? I mean, how are we gonna set that?
Well, I think, first of all, we're in the middle of starting our new program year, so I think what we're gonna do is allow Bolingbrook to work the 2013 program under exception criteria. That's what the purpose is today. And I would accept a motion for that, so that we have the direction.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I've got
I have
comment.
a couple of comments, Joe.
Make the motion second.
Go ahead.
I guess what you're trying to do is get input from us. Does the county qualify for the 35% criteria?
No.
Okay. You know, and we've always been project specific when we assigned HUD money to any project, whether it was the Ridgewood project or anything in Fairmont. And I, at Wilmington or any other one that you'd want to use, I think it's important that the community go out and do the work and knock on the doors and to establish it, and not just blanket an entire area. I'd like them to be specific in the blocks that meet the criteria. That's what I'd like to do.
What Jim Newsom was saying is that he would like us to adopt a policy to allow exception criteria should it be requested or should it be needed. So we have to establish the policy and how we're going to do it. And I suspect that would be on a case-by-case basis. So if Rockdale comes in, Rockdale happens to be one of the few communities that has census data to support 51%. But let's say Wilmington comes back in next year, and if they are made aware of the fact that we allow exception criteria, then we lose our power over them or our leverage over them to do the income surveys. And they would, but this board could make a decision saying that we will or we will not allow exception criteria in your community. So it's going to be a transition for a while.
But Ron, even the exception criteria doesn't mean you would not say under the exception we still want you to do the survey.
Well, you could.
I mean, you know, the whole idea is to try to make it a little bit easier. Under the exception criteria, if we're saying, well, we're going to allow an exception criteria at 45%, but you still have to go out and do the survey to shows you at 45%.
That would be
I mean, so I think it just gives more flexibility under the program to allow more communities to participate in these funds. Right now, if you wanted to go strictly by the federal guideline, well, let's give Rockdale all the money, because that's where the only place it would qualify. The point is to try to put these funds in throughout Will County communities that may qualify under some other exception. So I think what it does is it just allows us then to say, well, we're going to, we think that if you can make 45%, we can, we can go forward. So that's, so there's a lot of work being done on what actually policy would be.
Right. What I would recommend is that we work on the policy, put it in the form of a resolution, bring it back to this board at the next meeting, whenever that is, and then it would be adopted by the county board, so that everybody understands what the policy entails. Because it is new ground for us. We haven't really seen how other communities do it, but what's forcing us to make this decision now, of course, is Bolingbrook. And that's good. It gives us an opportunity to we've only spent money in Frankfurt 1 or 2 times, and that's because of the census data. If Frankfurt or if other communities, Plainfield, we work in the townships. That's a little easier to work in the townships. If we had exception criteria, it might bring some of these projects into us that are not even seeing the light of day today.
And I think Mayor Clark made a good point about the community of Bolingbrook. more homogeneous community, so people are dispersed throughout the community. It's not like you have this one group, and including lower or more affordable housing. It's in the same communities that Roger was in, for example. I'm just saying it's hard to get a census there, but it doesn't mean that within that community there's not a significant portion of people who might meet certain. They might not meet 51%, but they might meet 45%. I think just have some flexibility to utilize those funds best we can. This makes sense to me.
Okay, motion and be in order.
I'll move on, except for Bolingbrook.
Moved by Mr. Eustace. Second by Ms. White. Call the roll, Ron.
Walsh.
Yes.
Brooks.
Yes.
Eustace.
Yes.
Holland.
Yes.
Blair.
Is a conflict,
No.
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Vander Eyden.
Yes.
Walsh.
Yes.
Can I add one more comment?
Yes, you sure can.
The reason we became an entitled community, and I was mayor at the time, once we had 50,000, which was the benchmark, I wanted to go entitled. I had sat on this board for years prior to that, and I watched this. I think we rebuilt the sewage treatment system in Rockdale. I watched other projects continue to be funded, and Bolingbrook was lucky to get a dime. And so I thought, we're a large community, second largest community in Will County. We do have our problems, and even though we may not hit the baseline criteria like some other parts of Will County do, we were entitled to something that was fair and equitable, and that's why we went for infrastructure. It didn't benefit anybody, any developer. It was just basic things to take a neighborhood that was deteriorating because of lacks on the part of people in charge in the early 50s or late 50s, and bringing it up to the same standards the balanced community is to maintain that diversity we have in our community, which we're very proud of.
Well, you're not unique in the fact that we've helped, let's say, like Homer Township, which would be viewed as being generally a wealthy township. But there's certain parts of Homer Township that definitely needed our help, and we jumped in and helped them. And I know Mayor Holland has been quite vocal on if they need help, then we should be there for them. So I think this is an absolute right thing to do for Bolingbrook. Jim Walsh.
I just one question, Ron. So you are going to go back and kind of draw us up a program on this percentage stuff and come back to us, and then we get to suggest or...
Right. There won't be any numbers associated with it.
Okay.
Because each community will have different exception criteria. But establishing the process and the principle is really what the policy is going to be. And then, these decisions will be aired at the public hearing when the projects are brought to us for review. And
This policy changing, does it has to be supported by HUD?
I believe that is part of the process, yes. So I'm
So
going to first get that.
Yeah.
I don't know if we can get this done before the application to go out this year, but I'm going to try.
Any other issue needs to be brought up before this advisory board meeting? Anything else, Ron? Staff? Thank you for everything. Thank you all for taking time out of your schedule to come this morning. Motion to adjourn. Moved by Mr. Clare, second by Mr. Jim Walsh. All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Contrary,